Male sexuality can be more fluid than most men and women realize. If a man identifies as gay and has sex with a man, he knows he's attracted to men. However, there are men who identify as heterosexual, and yet they may sometimes feel sexual desire for men and may actually engage in sexual activity with men. Yet they know they're attracted to women. This leads to conflicted emotions for the man and for his female or even his male partners. So today's guest will shed some light on this confusing and often emotionally painful conundrum. So today I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Joe Kort.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Goodstone. Thank you.
Welcome to the Men in Love series. I'm your host, Dr. Erica Goodstone. In this event, you will hear from thought leaders on the forefront of knowledge and experience about men and love. So I know that you have written many books about this area, this confusing area in men's sexual lives. So please tell us about your background, your education and training, and what led you to focus on this.
Well, for years, so I've been doing this almost 32 years in May, and I've seen, men, women, straight, gay, all, bisexual, transgender, and I've seen forever men coming into my office who were having and engaging in what we call homosexual sex. It's not gay because they're not gay, and gay is an identity. Homosexual is a behavior, and they would not identify as gay or even bisexual. And many of them would come to my office because of my specialty of having been specializing in sexual abuse. So what I would find early on in the clinical room anyways is that men were what I would call return to the scene of the sexual crime. So if they had a male perpetrator, they would reenact that perpetration as an adult, having eroticized the sexuality with a man and behave sexually with men the way they were sexually abused. Over time, though, what I started to see was that there were men who weren't sexually abused who were coming into my office who were just engaging in sex with men for all kinds of other reasons that had nothing to do with being gay. And they're distinctly different than gay and bisexual men.
So how are they different?
Well, yeah, and there's some new research that's come out. I'm so happy about it because I've been talking about this. I was one of the first to talk about this as a therapist, and people would say it can't be true and not believe me and tell me that I was keeping closeted gay men closeted because in the beginning, closeted gay men think they're straight, but then they think they might be bi, then they realize they're gay. The straight men who are having sex with men, they're not attracted to the man, they're attracted to the sex. They're attracted to a penis, they're not attracted to the male body form. So they might want to have fun and play with a penis, have anal sex and oral sex, but it's not, that's all it is. They're done. And I know gay men would say, well, I like to do that too. But gay men like to do that and they like to look up at the guy and have some kind of situation with the guy. Straight men aren't into that. They're just into the sex act and then it's over.
Fascinating. So you have so many books out that clarify a lot of this. And one of them asks the question, is my husband gay, straight, or bi? So what would you tell a partner who asks that question?
Well, first I always say, I'm not a gay whisperer. I can't tell you whether your husband is or isn't gay. If I was, I'd be as rich as Oprah and I'd be living next door to her. What I can tell you is over the years I've developed 4 questions and more than that, but the 4 major questions I ask to help is, does he have youthful noticing? Meaning, when gay men talk about their lives, they'll remember being attracted to boys, not knowing really what it was called, having a crush on their teacher, having sexual acts wanting to have sexual acts with other boys. Straight men who have sex with men have none of that. They have no youthful memories because they're not gay. It's not an attraction to men. That's the first thing. They don't have any youthful noticing. The straight men aren't homophobic. So when gay men come to my office, they don't want to be gay, so they're very homophobic. They're fighting it. In fact, they're so homophobic, they won't come to my office because I'm too gay, my office is too gay. They're going to come to a straight therapist. The straight men who have sex with men, they're not homophobic. They've come in holding my books that were recommended by a well-intended therapist saying, Joe Kort, if I'm gay, make me gay. Get me there. I want to be gay. And they're not because because of the no youthful noticing, no homophobia. The third thing is I call it the beach test. When you're on the beach, what are your eyes drawn to before you even know you're looking? What are you attracted to? For me as a gay guy, the women are in the way. No offense, but I'm looking at her husband, I'm looking at her son, adult son. So the straight guys will say the men are in the way. They're not looking at men. If they do, they're looking at his body, workout, his arms, his chest, but not sexually. They're looking at women sexually. And then the fourth thing I ask is, who do you want to wake up next to in the morning? Straight men always say a curvy, soft woman. Gay men will always say maybe a hairy or a muscular guy. And a bisexual guy might say one or the other or both.
Wow, so you really have it clarified. And what effect does that have on the partner when they hear that?
Well, they really appreciate it hearing, because they're always worried. I always thought women would worry first that they would be given an STI or HIV. And that's not their first concern. Their first concern is he going to leave me? And that they don't want that. So they're reassured when they hear this that he's not going to leave her. And these men aren't going to leave her. Their home is not in the gay community. They're straight men. Their home is in the straight community, but they like to play with men on the side, or they like to look at gay porn on the side.
So they don't automatically get divorced or split up?
No, there's a rupture automatically, but then there's a reuniting when they recognize this is just a sexual thing. It's not a identity thing.
So I can see that as creating greater intimacy for a couple where they are accepting that's who that person is. It's a part of it.
Absolutely.
Wow,
Well
that's
said.
powerful.
Yes.
So then you've written another book about gay affirmative therapy for the straight clinician. So what does that mean? Don't most therapists have a gay affirmative attitude? Don't they like to build self-esteem for clients?
That's an attitude. Well, an attitude is different than in being informed, right? So yeah, there's lots of gay-friendly therapists, but they're not informed, and for sure they're not informed on sexual fluidity, how gay men love other men, how male love and male sexuality looks. We know a lot about women in our culture and in our field, and we understand them, and we almost aspire, how couples aspire to a female sexuality, a female way of loving. Men do it very differently. Sometimes it's the same, but often it's very different.
So I'd love to hear more about that. That's why I created this series.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating what people are saying. One of the things is that male sexuality and male love is not this simple thing that we always thought it was. It's complex, just like women's sexuality. And
right, well, totally. Well, think about how we shut boys down by the age of 8. We stop touching them. We start teaching them to reject everything feminine. So the only place they have access to their feelings, deep feelings, is through sex, is through sports, is through work, and through violence. So men will come into my office and say, I feel like when I'm trying to have an argument with my wife, she's holding a machete and I have a little Swiss pocket knife, and we're trying to they're under-equipped.
Wow, what an incredible image.
And so the idea isn't to necessarily always help the man become more like the woman. It's really helping women understand that men love in different ways. So for instance, the women are very frightened, and some therapists are very frightened by the landscape of male sexuality. Men are more sexual. They're non-relational sometimes. They want their wives to be into it. They're not going to just want to have sex with her and not have her into it, but it's not necessarily going to be a relational, loving sort of thing that a lot of women enjoy. Sometimes it's just objectification. Let's get to the act. Let's just get to the orgasm, and it's their way of being sexual, and it's not any less loving or attaching.
And there has been research, at least I remember from a long time ago, Cher Hyatt and some others did research about women's fantasies. And in their fantasies, women are not necessarily fantasizing this loving, close relationship. They fantasize rape and all kinds of things that you wouldn't expect. So we are all more complex. Way
more complex. And men, the biggest issue, this is so normal, we all know this, women want affection and to feel connected, to be sexual. Men want sexuality so that they can feel connected. So that men really struggle with finding time to be affectionate to their wives and their girlfriends.
I would like you to expand upon that statement you made about the woman is holding a machete and the guy, I forgot what he's holding, something very... pocket knife, because I once worked with a man who had been a fighter pilot, and he said that that was easy compared to dealing with his wife. And it was that same kind of fear that he couldn't do it right, and
He can't.
he didn't have
He's
the
under
skills.
Right, he doesn't have, I mean, that's the whole point, and then our psychotherapy has really been trying to honor that men are under-equipped, and it's not because we're men, it's because we're taught to shun all of this. And so now we're expected to have these skills in relationship. Like women will come in and say, you know, he's dead, there's nothing, there's no emotion, he's not available, and I'll say, oh, is that true when he's watching sports? No, when he's watching sports, he's screaming at the TV, he's high-fiving his buddies, you see a whole different man. So he's not dead. He just is scared and doesn't have access to these feelings in relationship. And this isn't just straight men. This is gay men. When you see gay male couples,
I was going to ask about that.
Oh, totally. I feel like as a therapist, I'm like a woman in the relationship trying to teach them vulnerability, tenderness, and connection where, because men are not socialized, gay, straight, bi, whatever, to be that way. Trans men are, right? Because they were women, raised as women.
And lesbians, you know, if you watch them, there is so much emotion, so much communication.
Yes.
This rage, this violence, this is a whole range of emotions.
It's wonderful, actually. And no matter how hard the fight is, no matter how loud the fight is in my office, in the end, they always reconnect. Always. They kiss, they hug. I always tell my clients that, and I say, look, before you go, I want you to find your inner lesbian and reconnect with your partner because it's such a nice thing.
I love the inner lesbian. That's great. Come up with words. It's wonderful. Okay, and then you have another book, 10 Smart Things Gay Men Can Do to Improve Their Lives. What can they do?
That was my first book, and that really is just for gay men who are coming out and looking at their internalized homophobia, the gay shame. Gay shame and self-hate gets in the way of so many things. We all know this. And so for a gay man to self-actuate and really find a partner and have a life that he wants to have, or not find a partner, maybe he wants to just be single, he really needs to go through the process of coming out, dealing with his internalized homophobia, his own sexual self, because, you know, we have a sexual orientation, those who we're attracted to, but we also have an erotic orientation, the things we like to do in bed. And those are two things that we have to come out and really integrate into our identities. So that's what that book's about.
Wow. And you have another one about how gay men can find real love.
Yep. And that one is just a continuation, but this time it's, okay, now you've come out, you've done your, working on your internalized homophobia. How do you do that in your relationships? How do you come out to mom, and how do you deal with the issues you have with your mother? Because just because you come out doesn't mean you're all better and you feel good. Many clients will say, I feel worse. And you feel worse because of the dust bunnies that are in the closet, unresolved family issues, unresolved history, unresolved abuse. And that's where this book starts to deal with how do you deal with all of that. And how do you deal with breakups? And how do you deal with the fact that you may just want to be single in a culture that says being single is undervalued?
I think that in our culture we don't realize that gays have all that going on. All we think about is that they're wild and they're sleeping with a lot of different people, and we don't understand the complexity.
Right. And the truth is the complexity is there, and we're sleeping with a lot of people, and we have permission. You know, I always say it's not a gay thing, it's a guy thing, right? We don't have women in our culture saying, hold on, I want you to take me to dinner, I want to slow this down, let's feel each other's energy, for better or for worse. We just have more permission to have multiple partners.
And another piece that's very interesting that heterosexual couples can learn from gays is that they don't have definite role models where the man, you know, one doesn't have to be the one providing money and the other doesn't have to be the one who cooks. So talk about that. How are the relationships?
Well, they've always been more like, what are you best at and what am I best at? And then we negotiate that. And straight couples are more like this now, too. I notice the younger ones, right, 40 and younger, they're like, okay, let's just do what we do best. There's still some genderism that goes on in straight couples, but for men, you can't be that way. Or two women, you can't be that way. Somebody has to do the stuff of the other that would be traditionally considered the other gender. And so it's just a fairness. Even John Gottman did some really good research that there's just a balance of power and fairness and sharing of tasks.
So what have you noticed about couples in general? Like, how do you work with them, and how do you get them to, really work together? and feel
Well,
that
so
again.
yeah, I really, the biggest thing is they come in and one has a one up and one down position. And I just tell couples these days, I won't work with you under these circumstances. No one's one up and no one's one down. Nobody's better or worse. Everybody's got their own accountability piece, but you're on equal ground. And I want to start there. If you're unwilling to do that, I'm not going to be the therapist for you. I'm not aligning with you're better than the other just because of, something like that. And people always say a couple is just a couple. I can work with gays, lesbians, straight, and that's a myth. That's not true. Two men bring the issues of two men, the doubling of the gender. Two women bring what two women bring. It's completely different than a straight couple. And so I really try to teach therapists and help myself understand when I'm sitting with these couples that the love languages are all going to be very different.
Yeah, so you said like two women. What is it like for two women? What have you experienced with?
Well, they don't deal with anger on a regular basis. They're not initiating sexuality as much as women in straight couples. They are more domestic and more, sometimes they're enmeshed. Not all, but the clinical, the ones that we see in our office become enmeshed. I always feel like I'm having to be the jaws of life to separate them and say, it's okay that your partner has a separate identity. And the fighting in my office, oh my God, lesbians fight almost the worst that I've ever seen in all my couples. And like I said, in the end, they calm down, they reconnect, and I'm such a mess. I'm popping an Ativan while they're walking down the hall. They're good. I'm like, oh, but it's because they don't deal with anger on a regular basis. So when they get in the therapy room, it's rage.
But they get it out, and then they feel close because the person's still there.
It's
Their
great.
partner didn't leave them after they revealed all of that.
Yes.
So what do you experience with men?
The male couples, there's a little bit more of a competitiveness. There's a little bit less power sharing. It is sort of because of that competitiveness, the inability to be tender and vulnerable on a regular basis. I always feel like I'm the woman in a relationship for gay men. Like I have to teach them. You got a husband here, but mostly, and it's okay. 50% of gay male couples are open relationships where they're having negotiated openness and contracts with being sexual outside the relationship. Sometimes it's so far that they're being sexual with everybody but each other. And sometimes that's because they want to, and sometimes it's because they don't know how to stay sexual with each other. And then I have to teach them how to do that. And
how does that work? Are they happy? Are they jealous? Do they all have the same friends? Like, how does it work?
Oh, it's there. I'll tell you this real quick. I had a couple. It works for the most part. It can be a bad thing. It can turn out, and that's why they come to therapy. But I had a couple that had an agreement that they weren't going to have affairs. They could have sex with other people, but nothing emotional. One of the guys became emotional, and it became a problem. They came to therapy, and they had to. It was a lot of work we had to do. He ended that relationship. They recommitted to each other. Then they opened their relationship up and got back into their open relationship. And each had sex with the same guy in the same week and came home and told each other, oh, my God, I met this hot guy on this app and this app. And they were like, oh, my God, so did I, too. Don't you think he would be great for our friend Ralph, who is looking for a guy just like him? So they set Ralph up with this hookup. They become a couple, and now these two couples are best friends and vacation together, and it works out. And I always ask my therapist when I train them, how many straight people could tolerate that in their relationship?
It would be really, really hard.
It would.
We have so many ideas on love,
Yeah, and it doesn't mean these men love each other any less. It's a different kind of love. Every couple has their own love imprint. Every couple has their own erotic imprint. And we need to respect that.
And I have also seen several couples where particularly the man wants to open it up.
Yeah.
Wants to go to some of these clubs where they're open and you can be with other people.
Yeah. And
it's so hard for the wife. Even if she goes there and enjoys it, she's got such guilt and such mixed up feelings. Have you experienced that at all with straight couples?
I have, and I've experienced the other way around where the woman feels this way. And she's not fully satisfied with the husband and just says, I want to open it up. And it's so hard because it's not a simple therapy task, right? This is like sitting with not knowing. It's complex. It's nuanced. Without making the one who wants to open it bad and the one who doesn't want to open it good. Again, no one up, one down. It's like, it just is. How are you going to negotiate this?
I think what people forget is that your relationship is unique. And if you love this person, you have to work out what makes both people happy.
We're in a culture, in a therapy culture even, that's monoganormative, right? That monogamy is the norm, and anything that strays from that is wrong, and that's wrong. That's a lie. It might not be right for the couple, but it's not wrong for couples that want to be open.
Right. There are many people, especially younger people, they seem to be more receptive to more openness.
Oh my God, I see that. If I close my eyes sometimes, I think I'm in front of a gay couple, because male couples have known this forever. Being open doesn't threaten the relationship. And straight couples are understanding that now.
Some,
right.
So what suggestions and tips can you provide for our listeners, gay or heterosexual, maybe for both, each one?
Well, learning how to tolerate the differences. So this is the main goal of most relationships. It's called differentiation. You can be different, and doesn't make you bad or wrong, or me bad or wrong. I don't have to collapse what I believe just because you believe that, or vice versa. But also sexual differentiation. Just because you want something sexual doesn't make it wrong or bad, or just because I feel disgusted or contemptuous toward that sex act doesn't make you a pervert or a sex addict. I see that all the time in my office. Rather, we have sexual differences, and you may not like what I'm into, but this is what I'm into. I may not like what you're into. How are we going to negotiate this so that we get our needs met? So to me, the biggest issue in relationships is honoring the differences the best way we can.
Wow, that is a powerful statement. So
it's hard work.
It is hard work. So just talk a little bit about the work involved in getting to that place.
Well, I'll tell you just a personal thing. I'm married to somebody who has Asperger's, and I didn't know he had Asperger's until like 17 years into our relationship. And really, we've talked about this. He's like being married to Sheldon on The Big Bang Theory. If anybody watches that, it's so, we watch it, I say to him, that's so you. And then I'm so much like the roommate. I've had to honor the differences. It really used to bother me in the beginning. He's so different. It seemed like he was so selfish, so non-giving, so self-centered, and then once I realized he had Asperger's and we both understood that, I was able to honor the differences. Like, he tries as hard as he can, given the fact that he has Asperger's, and he sees that I try as hard as I can to relate to him with my neurotypical brain and his Asperger's brain. It's not bad. It's work. And some days it's not a lot of work. It's easy. And other days you just go, oh my God, all right. Just remember, this is the way he thinks. This is the way I think. How am I going to communicate to him?
And it's so important that this other person is thinking differently.
Yes, that's all it is.
So they're not responding the way you're expecting it, the way you say something and they didn't respond, and you say, boy, they don't care. But it's...
Right. Not personal. And that's what I learned in my own marriage and what I try to teach couples. It's not personal. It feels personal. It is not.
So just what do you mean by it's not personal?
Well, I used to think Mike was effing with me. You're effing with me, and you're doing this to me on purpose. I've told you 500 times this is how it makes me feel, and here you are again. It's not. He's doing the best he can to communicate whatever he's doing. I feel effed with, but I'm not. It's not what that is. I'm just not. We're not connecting. We're not finding a good way to hear each other.
This is what people really have to do in relationships. Really, you have to get the support for yourself.
Yes, and self-regulate and self-soothe. Instead of demanding that your partner make you feel better.
Or depending that your friends make up for it, so you complain about the partner to everybody else.
Yes. Yeah.
That's why I advocate therapy. It really, really helps.
When I was single, I wouldn't date anybody who didn't have therapy for at least a year.
Wow, that's smart. Okay, thank you so much for participating in this series.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really love doing these with you.
Yeah. And to those of you listening, I look forward to speaking to you again soon.